Rules at a public meeting will not allow us to physically include the community at this time. So we began to plan for how to live stream our meetings. We are happy that tonight the entire community can see and hear our meeting through our YouTube channel. The link is available at the top of the district website. The second is a change to our public comment procedures. Our method of utilizing public Zoom meetings up to now has created many difficulties and security concerns. Over the past few months, there have been multiple verbal interruptions, most by anonymous sources, and even one instance where the screen was taken over by an anonymous participant. Utilizing a Zoom webinar meeting increases the safety, allows everyone to still see the board and other participants, and limits the likelihood of visual and verbal interruptions from others. The public comment procedures are different, but they only serve to increase the possible involvement by the community. Comments that were received by 6 p.m. this evening will be read during the first public comment period near the beginning of the meeting. Any comments that were entered after 6 p.m. or that are entered before the second public comment period during the meeting will be read at the end of the meeting. This pre-submission of public comment allows individuals to publicly express their thoughts on agenda items, even if they are not able to attend the meeting. As with all public comment periods, questions and concerns raised will either be addressed at the end of the public comment period or through personal contact later in the week. The link to the public comment form can also be found at the top of our website. We do look forward to the opportunity to have everyone in the community gathered in the conference room and large group instructional space again for our meetings. But until then, we continue to value community's ability to interact with the committees and the board meetings and to provide their comments. According to policy 903, public comment, which is limited to 3 minutes, should be directed to the presiding officer rather than individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. For confidentiality and privacy rights, specific comments regarding particular individuals must be communicated privately to the school board and superintendent via the email at psdschoolboard@penridge.org. So now I would like to go ahead and read the public comment that we've received sometime between Saturday and 6 p.m. this evening. The first is from Nicole Smith in Percy Borough. In the case of the high school student that recently tested positive for COVID-19, how was the school notified? Was it by the parent or the Department of Health? I am happy to hear that the student is feeling better. However, it concerns me that parents are not being honest and/or diligent when sending their kids to school. How can we avoid situations like this so the kids and teachers are kept safe? Ashley Fretz from Bedminster. I would like to thank all the teachers and board members for getting our kids back to school. My children who attend Bedminster Elementary and North Middle have been so happy to get back in the classroom and have a routine again. Thank you for your continued support, and I wish all of you a happy school year. Carolyn Scurano, and again, I apologize if I mispronounced that last name, of Percy. I understand that the elementary children are provided face shields. My question is, if they are not allowed to bring them home to clean them daily, who, when, and how are they being cleaned? These are the types of questions I know there are answers to, however, we are not told them from the start. I understand many things are a work in progress, but there are certain things that already have a procedure in place. Wouldn't it make sense that you make sure the parents know of these procedures? Wouldn't that eliminate the amount of emails the principals, teachers, and all other staff members are receiving from concerned parents? I thank you for what you are doing, but more clarity on procedures would be helpful and in reality needed. Thank you. Fabio Scarino from Hilltown Township. In regards to Class Seesaw, parents should be able to have access to Class Seesaw directly through the Class Seesaw application as it was in the spring, rather than having to go through the ClassLink application, log in for each child individually, and proceed through several steps to eventually get into Class Seesaw for that child. The process as it is beginning to be used now is very cumbersome and time consuming, particularly for parents with multiple children in the hybrid class as we do. Can this be changed back to how it was being used in the spring? Thank you. Jennifer Hannigan from Hilltown Township. I'm a parent of a high school senior at Penridge. The number of Bucks County residents hospitalized for COVID-19 dropped today to 3. The hospitalization number is the lowest the county has seen since March 16th. Why are we not open for school education? We are committing more harm than good to children. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP, strongly advocates that all policy considerations for the coming school year should start with the goal of having students physically present in school. The importance of in-person learning is well documented, and there is already evidence of the negative impacts on children because of the school closures in the spring of 2020. There is no substitute for the hands-on learning, collaboration, and one-on-one instruction that takes place in a classroom setting. It is important for students of all ages to be around their peers and teachers. As the AAP states, lengthy time away from school and associated interruption of supported services often result in social isolation, making it difficult for schools to identify and address important learning deficits, as well as child and adolescent physical or sexual abuse, substance use, depression, and suicidal ideation. As the parent of a documented immune deficient child, I'm well aware of what can be done to follow CDC guidelines to have children attend class, ride buses, and be kids. My other children actually now have already returned to school, private school, where they're attending full-time, socially distant, but mask-free. With proper cleaning, distancing, and self-care, there is no reason not to allow all children looking to go back full-time to attend school to grow educationally, emotionally, and physically. Remember, we don't close for flu season. Stacy Smith from Percy Borough. Research shows engaging directly with our country's racist past and present helps students of all colors. Recently, there was a petition asking Penn Ridge for age-appropriate anti-racism curricula tailored for all stages of K12 education at our schools. It reached almost 2,000 signatures. Clearly, this is something a lot of community members feel should be a focus within our district. How is the curriculum committee addressing this request? In addition, what can the committee chair do to assure the district that her personal opinions on the existence of systemic racism will not interfere with the influence on anti-racism education in the district? Ashley Dallas from Hilltown Township. I just wanted to give a shout out to my son's virtual second grade teacher, Mrs. Teeple from Grass Elementary. Talk about someone who has risen to the occasion. She has seemingly embraced the challenge of teaching virtually and has done an outstanding job of engaging her students and teaching them how to utilize their technology. I am so appreciative of her and the other teachers who have continued to work hard to put their students first in these circumstances. Thank you. Katie Renee from Percy Borough. I am writing with regard to the most unwelcome change announced recently by the Penn Ridge School District that members of the public will no longer be allowed to speak at board meetings. Instead of being allowed to speak to you tonight about my concerns, someone else is reading this statement to you. I wonder who is reading it and what tone of voice will they use. I wonder if they will deliver it at the same speed that I would in order to ensure that it will fit within the 3 minutes I am allotted. One reason the district gave for this change is to provide security against inappropriate video or audio. There are best practices for use of the Zoom software that can help prevent these issues, which the district's technology staff should be familiar with. I would add that, as I attended the virtual board meetings over the past few months, the only vulgar comment I recall hearing came from one of the board members themselves. The language they used demonstrated hostility towards lengthy public comment periods, which will now be more easily controlled by the board under this new policy. A second reason the district gave for the public comment procedure change is that it will eliminate the difficulty of identifying a speaker on a Zoom call. I suspect that the number of meeting attendees will not sustain at the numbers they have been recently, and it will become much easier to identify a speaker. How many attendees are there at tonight's meeting? There are a lot of things that are difficult right now. Most of us don't have a choice to eliminate our difficult circumstances, as the board is attempting to do with this new policy. Or we might lose our jobs, get a bad grade, or disappoint our families. Instead, we have to find a way to compensate and to do our best given the difficulty. Our board and administration has assigned many of our teachers to simultaneously teach students who are both in person and live on Zoom, and expect that the teachers should manage that even though it's difficult. The board should similarly be able to adopt a hybrid use of technology to allow live public comment from those who wish to contribute. A further issue with the email from the district is that it notes that, I quote, public comment is limited to residents of the public of the Penridge community, end quote. This is incorrect. Board Policy 903 states, the board requires the public participants be residents or taxpayers of this district or anyone representing a group in the community or school district, any representative of a firm eligible to bid on materials or services solicited by the board, any district employee, any district student. A correction to this email should be sent to its original distribution list. I suspect another argument I might hear is that other districts are using this method of reading public comment. To that, I say that Penridge has shown recently that it is willing to blaze a trail, to do things differently than surrounding districts if it believes it is in the best interest of the community. So give us a choice about how we contribute to meetings, the same way you were so proud to give us a choice about how we attend school. You found a way to get 7,000 students back to school during a pandemic. Please let those who wish to email their comments do so, but please also find a way to allow the community to use their own voice to speak to you via public comment. More voices are better, not worse. Thank you. David Bedillion from Percy Borough. I am disappointed and concerned that the Penridge School District is giving into political pressure to broadly adopt the ideological canon of diversity, equity, and inclusion into the educational curriculum. By rushing to adopt this initiative, Penridge is showing a lack of discernment and objectivity, and abandonment of core educational principles of critical thinking, problem solving, and informed judgments. The foundations of the diversity, equity, and inclusion movement are based on some concerning ideological perspective that at best are hotly contested in our country, let alone within our community. Although these movements are proposed as a generic effort to simply be more diverse, inclusive, and sensitive of different backgrounds and perspectives, the reality is the way these terms are defined is inaccurate, immoral, and divisive in nature. The idea that you simply get more diversity by selecting across group identities is technically wrong, because evidence shows there is more diversity within a particular group than there is between any two groups. In addition, it is immorally wrong because it makes the broad assumption that everyone within a particular group thinks, believes, acts, and experiences life in the same way. Rather than focusing on a common pursuit of educational excellence within a collective group of diverse individuals, diversity, equity, and inclusion seeks to divide individuals into collective, intersectional groups and use identity politics to have these groups compete in a supposed hierarchy of oppressors versus the oppressed in some way that's supposed to show moral righteousness. One does not have to look hard to see that the results thus far amongst the majority of higher education institutions, and soon to be many secondary institutions, are providing that students are becoming less tolerant, less accepting, more hostile, and more focused on political correctness than academic rigor and individual excellence. Students are becoming less apt at critical thinking and making persuasive arguments, and less accepting of different ideas and perspectives. More effort is being spent to eliminate words and ideas that might cause discomfort or give offense than to instilling compassion, confidence, and intellectual excellence in our students to prepare them to handle a world different perspectives. By pushing this initiative, Penridge is aligning itself with a movement that openly seeks to disrupt, dismantle, and radically change the foundations of our education system. As clearly articulated by the signers of the change.org petition, they, quote, demand an immediate pledge to overhaul and institute a curriculum dedicated to anti-racism, end quote. I will certainly stand up with our community and say there are opportunities for improvement in the Penridge curriculum, but I cannot support changes to our educational system made through coercion and demands for a complete overhaul, regardless of the perspective. Rather than carefully and objectively reviewing the curriculum to accurately define shortcomings and consulting many perspectives from the Penridge community, the school district has shown that it is simply virtue signaling to political and activist demands. I urge the Penridge Curriculum Committee to use discernment and objectivity when evaluating curriculum changes and put the needs of our students above the need to cower to political pressures. Lee Rush from Percy. Once the board decides to meet in person, is this new policy in regards to no live public comment going to be continued? Sean Raymer Hunter from Percy Borough. I have 2 children attending Guth Elementary. I have been impressed thus far with both the hybrid and virtual learning models that my children have participated in. I want to acknowledge the hard work of all administrators, staff, and teachers. I am disappointed in the board's decision to discontinue live comments via video conferencing. Allowing written comments for those unable to attend meetings is an excellent idea, but not a reason to silence live voices. I understand it might be technically difficult to moderate these events, but board members have thus far done an admirable job. Lastly, I ask that the district commit itself to becoming a safe environment for students of color. We have heard stories from current and former students who do not find or did not find Penridge to be a safe place, and I want that to be better. Students of color should see teachers that look like them. White teachers and students should be educated to understand how race and racism has shaped our community, to understand implicit bias and see how that impacts students. We as a district need to move beyond saying, I'm not racist, I don't see color, I don't see race, to being trained as allies for people of color in our community so that we can acknowledge the barriers that systemic racism in our society and institutions create. At the last school board meeting, two students, Alea and Maya Lomax, presented a petition demanding an immediate pledge from the Penridge School District to overhaul and institute a curriculum dedicated to anti-racist education and the release of a plan about how exactly the district intends to educate students about racism and uplift and promote the work of diverse scholars, historians, and activists. The petition calls for, number one, adding diversity, compassion, and anti-racism to the core curriculum of our district as a required course or equivalent. Two, the inclusion of diverse authors in at least 35% of syllabi in humanities classes, such as history, literature, government, and the social sciences. Three, increased diversity of teaching staff, administration, and disciplinary figures. Four, require diversity and implicit bias trainings each semester for all members of the teaching staff, administration, and disciplinary figures. And five, holding students who say or do discriminatory or offensive things accountable for their actions, and transparency about hate speech policies and consequences. I hope the Penridge School District can acknowledge the need for change in this area and be able to move forward with urgency. Thank you for your time. And the final one for the first comment period came from Kim Purcell of Sellersville. The extra work that the administration, directors, and staff has put into school reopening is very much appreciated. Thank you. It is surely not an easy or simple undertaking and does not seem as if it will get any easier in the near future. That said, it appears that Penridge School District is not currently following the PA state recommendations for instructional models, which is based on county level data of cases per 100,000 or % of positivity tests over the last 7 days. What is your metric for determining when or if to move away from a full in-person model to a hybrid and/or virtual model? And when will you share this information with the community and staff? Considering the potential rise in cases due to college students moving home and several districts reopening with a hybrid model or full-time in-person, it would be appropriate and fair information to be shared so that parents and staff can plan accordingly. Hopefully, frequent, rapid antigen testing will soon become common and very inexpensive, and will allow all students to return to school based on that testing. Until then, these unprecedented times require outside the box thinking and creative solutions that will protect our kids and community at large. Thank you for those members who submitted public comment. Do want to address a couple of the topics that came up. First of all, there were multiple comments regarding diversity. As we've said over multiple meetings, this is an area that we remain fully committed to and do admit that we need to do better in, and will continue to work towards that goal. Tonight, you will see, if you remember in August, we were able to talk about a preview of our district goals. Tonight, we've asked Dr. Durr to make a presentation during the meeting regarding that. And so that will be something that happens tonight, so stay tuned. I think it's the next item on the agenda. Dr. Durr will be up soon. There was a question regarding how the school was notified regarding the positive case that was sent an email on Friday evening and discussed over the weekend. I received a call from Dr. Damster on Friday afternoon. All positive test results anywhere in the county are filtered through his office. And so if there's a positive test result of a school-aged child, Dr. Damsker or a member of his office contacts the superintendent or their designee as soon as possible. And so that is what happened in this case. They became aware of the positive test result on Friday morning, and then they called me on early afternoon, and that began the process. There was a question around face shields. The face shields obviously are remaining at school. Concern around damage and loss and students just forgetting to bring them back and forth. And so there is a process in place where those are being cleaned if they are being used. They're not used every day or in every classroom by every kid, but there is an opportunity to learn and then to do that cleaning depending on the student's age. Any parent who would rather have that come home to be able to monitor that for themselves just simply needs to ask the teacher. The teacher will gladly send them home as frequently as the parent would like, and the parent can then interact with that face shield the way they wish. The seesaw comment was one that is new to me, and so I've asked Dr. Rabarchak if he will investigate that at the elementary level in terms of the changes of seesaw, because I know that we're utilizing QR codes, but beyond that, I'm not aware of any changes. And so I've asked Dr. Rabarchak to look into that, and we'll get back to that parent personally. There was a question about data. If you remember when Dr. Damsker was with us, we talked about how we continue to work with them on all decisions regarding the need to close a class, a school, or the entire district, or in this case, to change the instructional model. At that meeting, he discussed that there are multiple data points that he references. One of them are the metrics. There actually were two metrics that were mentioned. One has to do with cases, both within the county as well as within Penridge and Upper Bucks. Those are numbers that, because we have our own Department of Health, as is true in only 6 of 67 counties, they can monitor those numbers. And so I do speak to him weekly. I mean, that's part of what he does, but there are also multiple other numbers, hospitalizations, positivity rate, interspread in terms of those cases that are being used. And so those conversations will continue, and we'll continue to look at that and make those determinations and decisions in conjunction with the Department of Health. So thank you, Mrs. Cullen, and the rest of the participants for humoring me as we got through that. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bolton. And I believe the first item on the agenda is Dr. Durr's presentation on diversity and equity. So Dr. Durr, if you wanted to begin.
Okay, I'm gonna get my screen share ready. Okay, is everybody seeing my screen? All right, great, thank you. So I'm happy to be here tonight to present an overview of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative. I wanted to start with a little bit of history of the initiative, which actually began many years ago with our social emotional learning curriculum. But I'm going to start with the history of the development of our comprehensive plan. And this initiative has also grown through our social emotional learning initiative, our Habits of Mind initiative, our K12 Counseling Plan, professional development activities, and curriculum development. So I'm going to take you through the history of each of these items over the next couple of slides. So in looking at the development of our comprehensive plan, this began in September of 2017. The comprehensive plan includes the district's special education plan, which outlines our inclusion initiatives in the district. The comprehensive plan was developed through community surveys and community planning sessions. Then it was posted for public review and comment for 30 days prior to board approval and then submission to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. The plan identifies 3 goals, and this can be found on the district's website. If you just search comprehensive plan, you can find the plan. Goal 1 is to enhance teaching, learning, and innovation. This goal covers our curriculum review of all of our curriculum in the district. Goal 2 is to promote effective technology. And goal 3 is to ensure the well-being of students and staff. And I wanted to elaborate a little bit on goal 3. There are 2 strategies under goal 3. Strategy 1 is to provide physical facilities safety nets. This includes enhanced peer conflict, bullying, harassment prevention, education, and building safety and security. And then strategy 2 is to provide social emotional learning safety nets. This is to help students build their social skills, understand and appreciate diversity, have acceptance of all, and analyze data for continuous improvement. So you can see the details of those strategies in the comprehensive plan, which I said is posted on the website. The next piece of history that I wanted to share is our social emotional learning initiative and curriculum. This was solidly in place, I think 5 years prior to the development of the comprehensive plan, certainly before my arrival at Penridge. And this involves our elementary SEL curriculum and really goes through 12 in our school district. This you will see on our website in our Takes Pride theme. And Takes Pride stands for trustworthiness, acceptance, kindness, empathy, service, perseverance, respect, initiative, dependability, and esteem building. We then introduced habits of mind during the 2019 school year, 2019-2020 school year. These are 16 habits that we all use to solve problems. So what we did is introduce this at our K12 administrators right before the school year started. And then what's happening with habits of mind is, as we are reviewing our curriculum and developing curriculum, we're tying these 16 habits of mind into the curriculum. So we make sure that we are covering all of the habits of mind. Some of the habits, I won't list all 16 for you, but some of them include listening with understanding and empathy, thinking flexibly, questioning and posing problems, thinking interdependently, analyzing past knowledge to new situations. So those are just a few. And then also under this area, we have our unified sports teams that we started last year and the year before. We have 2 fully inclusive teams, which include bocce and track. And I'm really, really happy and excited to share, there was a news article recently that Penridge is the first high school in Bucks County to reach nationally approved status as a Special Olympics Unified Champion School. So what that means, yay, Penridge, right? So what that means is that we have met national standards of inclusion, advocacy, and respect. So that is a really exciting achievement for Penridge. I believe we're going to get a banner that we will get to show off at our events. So that's very exciting. Next, I wanted to give a little bit of history about our K12 counseling plan that ties into this initiative. The K12 counseling plan was developed over the last 2 years. It's a pretty intensive process. We are now in full implementation. This plan is reviewed every year and SMART goals are updated. So it's not a plan that's been developed and sits on the shelf. Our counselors review it every year. We develop new SMART goals. And we will be reviewing this plan again as part of our DEI initiative to make sure that our guidance lessons at all levels, K through 12, focus on those areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So you can see some of the areas that it covers right now at each level. I listed on this slide for your review. The next area related to our history, I wanted to highlight some of the professional development activities that have been underway in the past 2 years. So back in November of 2018, well, just prior to that, we were noticing many students that were working through some gender identity struggles. And in response to that, we brought in Liz Bradbury to conduct a training on LGBTQ+ youth in our schools. And since that training, we've relied heavily on the resources that she has provided because we have a number of students every year that are struggling, and we use her resources just about every week to support those students. Then in August, our K12 Administrator group, again, we learned about the habits of mind. We problem solved some diversity and acceptance scenarios that were actually real scenarios from the school year. And we learned about the K12 Counseling Plan. Moving forward through December of 2019, Dr. Scheid's office engaged with Charissa Gibson at the IU Leadership Academy, and they focused on culturally responsive curriculum. So that relates directly to our curriculum committee and our curriculum initiative and review that we're undergoing right now. And then in January of 2020, we engaged Ms. Laura Lomax to come into the district to present the Welcome Workplace training to our K12 administrators. And we actually then began the conversations with Ms. Lomax and our DEI team. Continuing professional development in the 2020 school year included a guidance department book study on the Teaching Transgender Toolkit and ongoing conversations with Ms. Lomax with the DEI team. Some of the topics that you can see we engaged in that consultation I have listed on this slide. I'll just give you a moment to look at those. And then in June of this past school year, the DEI team developed a draft mission and vision and goals. And many of the sports coaches participated in a webinar titled Culturally Competent Coaching. Over the summer, we also offered optional summer learning opportunities in the areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as you can see, we had over 1,200 individual trainings that our professional and paraprofessional staff took advantage of. And the topics that we offered are listed there for your review. Additionally, we had over 50 teachers at the high school who initiated their own learning through a book study of the book White Fragility. And then right before the start of school, again, for our K12 administrator group, we engaged Dr. Charissa Gibson to work with us. And she presented a training titled An Introduction to Culturally Responsive Leadership. So I've given you an overview of our history related to the comprehensive plan, social emotional learning, and habits of mind, K12 counseling plan, and the professional development activities. This slide and the next will detail the work thus far of our curriculum equity audit. So the first activity that you can see listed here, our English and social studies staff reviewed all curricular topics related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then the second thing that they did is they evaluated the gaps and the areas where additional content and emphasis is needed. I just listed a couple of examples here. They had many examples as a result of that review, but I just listed a couple of examples here for you to see. The third activity related to our curriculum equity audit involves additional discussions about curriculum best practices. And one of those was Dr. Bolton met with the superintendents in Pennsbury and Centennial, who recently went through this process. And we will be engaging in future work with Ms. Lomax, Dr. Gibson, and the Penn Equity Council. So I wanted to put a slide in here. Where are we going next to talk about some of our upcoming activities? So these are the initial goals that Dr. Bolton shared previously. They are listed on this slide and the next slide, and we have 7 goals. The goals are to provide optional professional development resources to our professional staff over the summer. So that we did this past summer, and I presented that data. To provide mandatory professional development to all staff in November, and I will talk about that. To examine our mission, vision, and belief statements, our district mission, vision, and belief statements, to make sure that they appropriately address our commitment to diversity and equity for all students and staff, and to expand our DEI team to include parent and student representatives. So those are the first 4 goals. And then additional 3 goals: conduct an internal diversity audit of our English and social studies curriculum. So that has started, that's underway. Working within the current safety protocols to hold a community forum to encourage education and conversation regarding diversity and equity. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that on a future slide. To continue our attempts to attract additional diverse candidates to the Penn Ridge School District through promotional materials and expanded job fairs. So then the work of our DEI team identified 5 goals through that team. Many of them mirror the goals that Dr. Bolton has presented. So I'll give you a moment to review this slide, but the first 2 goals involve our K12 curriculum and also developing a series of ongoing learning activities. And then the next 3 goals, again, I'll give you a moment to review this information, but they involve our ESL students and families at Guth Elementary, creating a brand of infographics, and expanding our DEI team to include all stakeholders. Okay, so this is the work that the DEI team has started. This is a draft of the vision and mission for the DEI team. This will be finalized along with the goals when we expand our team participants and gain their input and feedback. So this was initial work. As I said, this is a draft, but we're going to have students now involved in our team and some family members. So we want everybody to look at this before we finalize our vision and mission statements. Give me a moment to look at that. And then these are our additional next steps. So we're looking to expand our DEI team members. Currently, I have sent out some invitations and I've heard back. We have a commitment from 8 family members, 6 students at the high school, and we have 16 Penn Ridge staff members. So we have a great start to our team. We'll be looking to possibly some additional community members, but we have a great start and those invitations have gone out and we have those commitments. So I'm excited about that. We do plan to have a community forum at some point when we can safely do that. I talked about that a little bit earlier. We have an upcoming training from Dr. Sharissa Gibson from Teach for Equity. And this will be a training for all of our teaching staff in November. So she will be coming back. She'll be doing a little bit of consulting with our DEI team, and then she'll be providing that training for all of our teaching staff. In this school year, 2021, we'll be bringing a contract for board approval. We're going to be working, hopefully, with approval with Intercultural Works and Ms. Laura Lomax to continue the consultation that she's provided in the past and to sort of guide our DEI team through our next steps. We've also engaged and we're participating in the Delaware Valley Consortium for Excellence and Equity. So this is a consortium that many of the school districts in our area and in surrounding counties participate in. There are a lot of professional development activities. They do a student forum where we'll have some students participating. So this is also an exciting addition to our work that we're doing. And then we also will have a new website presence. When our website launches, we will have a page dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion that will have the work we're doing, some resources for families and students. So we're also very excited about that. Okay, so I don't know if there are any questions or comments. Dr. Bolton, if there was anything additional that you wanted to add, but that was my presentation for this evening.
Sure, thank you. The only, besides how awesome that is in terms of the work that's been done as well as the work that's been planned, I look forward. I know the invitations went out, but I didn't know the yeses and nos, so I look forward to seeing that list and celebrating that together. Just a reminder, as we talk about curriculum work, that's curriculum work being done through our curriculum supervisors and our teachers who are looking at those gaps and those opportunities for both changes to our curriculum as well as just filling gaps where we look at content and say, is there a different way to emphasize our current curriculum? It doesn't require a change, but it allows us to emphasize different materials or utilize different resources, as well as looking for changes to our curriculum. So we're looking forward to hearing updates on that too, as the curriculum committee continues to work on that through the departments monthly. So are there any other questions or comments from board members?
I can't tell. Can you actually hear me? Okay, because I have the computer, but it's not working. Your sound isn't coming out of my computer. Anyway, you know, I'm glad to see that we're working on this. I just want to continue to encourage that we welcome all perspectives. I think that's important. It's a complex issue. It doesn't have easy answers. And we need to be respectful and mindful of the diversity of thought that goes along with this topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So if we could have a commitment to everyone being open-minded and having open and honest discussions, I think that those will be more productive. But thank you for the presentation. In the slide where you had the sort of like a mission statement, Dr. Durr, it said be anti-bias. I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be anti-bias or anti-biased with a, you know, past tense with an ED at the end, but that was just one thing I had noticed. And I had another question and I can't remember it right now. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments, board members? Okay. I guess we can, I'm sorry, move on to the next agenda item. And I can't see I'm trying to flip between screens, but I think it's the AP Gov book.
Yes, you're correct.
Hi. Are you ready, Mrs. Collin?
Yes, I am. Thank you. I couldn't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Scheid. I am here to present the textbook proposal for our AP U.S. Government and Politics course. It's a 12th grade course. Our supervisor is Mr. Faverka, and I am here to present for them this evening. So the reason why we're here tonight, this is a college level course for our seniors. We're here this evening. The justification is that our current textbook for this course, American Government 11th edition, has a 2007 copyright. And College Board does recommend that we really should be updating our resources, our text, within 10 years. We did start this process last school year, but with COVID and everything that happened, we did put that on hold. So, and also this course has had a redesign. And so we wanted to make sure that our students had proper resources to support this course. So our request is to purchase a classroom set of textbook bundles, which includes the print textbook and associated digital resources. We reviewed 3 textbooks, and they were all suggested by the College Board as meeting the requirements of the course. These are course goals, but I'm going to move to this part here to talk about that. So what we did, we had, in selecting the textbook, we had our K12 supervisor, Mr. Vaverka, Mr. DeTouris, who is our high school subject leader in social studies, and the teacher of the course, Mr. Tim Bush. They reviewed 3 potential options, and of the 3, this is the one that we are recommending. There was a rubric used. Each of the members of that team, the review team, used the rubrics. And I reviewed the books and the rubrics, as did Dr. Bolton, and absolutely agreed with the team that American Democracy Now! Was the best option of the 3. They were all appropriate, but this particular book with its online resources it's exceptional. The students will each be, there are 29 students in that class. We would be purchasing the textbook bundle cost at $148 and $148, and that includes a printed edition for each of the students plus the 6-year digital license. The students typically use the book at home. It's really not used in the classroom very much, but students, we surveyed our students a couple of years ago, and students, and in particular AP students, really need a textbook. So they'll take those home and they will use them. The total cost of the purchase is $44,440. Now this was already budgeted in the social studies department. We wanted to present this last spring, but when COVID hit and we weren't able to get all the books in place for board members to review, that's why we put it on hold for September. So the funds are already budgeted through the social studies department. So overall, I do want to tell you that the rubric included categories of review, curriculum, instruction, assessment, and technology. And in speaking with the team, it really was, the content was all pretty much the same. One of the books, really the outline of each unit, really I thought was a little confusing, but this particular package has excellent online resources, including assessment resources. So that is why this book was recommended by the team. Does anybody have any questions?
I just have a thank you and a comment. Over the last few years, there has been a defined rubric that's being used as we evaluate curriculum materials. And those rubrics were attached to the agenda for your review. And I just really appreciate taking a look through that focused lens on the important topics from all of the textbooks. And I think it does a really nice job of helping see what is important and what's not as you highlight and looking through textbooks. So thank you, Dr. Scheid, for developing that and for utilizing that.
Really quick, Dr. Scheid, I'm sorry to ask, but I'm trying to follow along on board docs on my phone as well, but it keeps blipping back. Can you scroll down on your share screen back to, go back to justification for me? Perfect.
Can you see it?
Yes. And so you're purchasing, you want to purchase textbook bundles, and then because you're saying that the students really need to have a hard copy of a textbook.
Yes, they absolutely, actually it's a preference. They want to have the textbook for them to review.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that, and the textbook bundle is a hardback, a tangible book. And then I got it now. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I was reading this because I kept trying to follow on my phone and it kept blipping back. So thank you so much.
No problem at all. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Cullen. Thank you, Dr. Bolton. So I guess the question is if we are able to move this textbook proposal to the school board meeting for approval.
I'm okay with it.
Mrs. Cullen, we're still having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yep. No, take your computer back. Your computer's
I
on
didn't
mute.
hear the
Phone's
question.
fine.
People are going in and out. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Dr. Thompson, the question was, do we move this proposal to motion at the board meeting? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shad. Mrs. McHale, could you walk us through the next couple agenda items, please?
Certainly. So tonight for personnel, I bring 3 motions to the board for consideration. The first is in accordance with the school code. Temporary professional employees will attain tenure and become professional employees upon the successful completion of a 3-year probationary period. And I am thrilled tonight to present to you the 20 individuals listed on the agenda who have satisfactorily completed their 3 years of probationary period, and I recommend them to the Board of Directors for consideration and acknowledgement of tenure, and hope to move that to the September 21st agenda. Are there any questions on those individuals?
It's a great list.
It's a long list.
Yeah.
So our second motion this evening is in accordance with the PESPA CBA, and it is the custodial maintenance staff who have attained either a level of certification or a license in a skilled area. And they are listed also on the attachment that you have, and the stipend that would be reflective of that certification and or stipend. I'm sorry, and or license. So we are recommending those individuals to the board again for consideration September 21st. Are there any questions on that? Just to point out, we did have a few additional individuals from over last year who have attained certification, which is only a help to the district. Should someone be absent, take a leave of absence, there's that other person to step in. So that has been a bonus this year.
I'd like to point out for community members who may not be familiar with this annual stipend that comes through, these are certifications that our employees get that then help with their jobs. So this allows us to be able to do work in-house. So if you think about all the work around a pool and keeping a pool up to speed that's used by a lot of members of the community, to have people in-house that can do that work and not have to sub that out saves the district an awful lot of money and keeps it within our own quality people. And so all of these certifications are used within their jobs. And so this is an area that was negotiated into the support staff contract to be able to provide some compensation and thanks for them to be able to do that.
Yeah, and the pool's a great area, a great example. You know, should there ever be some type of, you know, water or chemical emergency, you have that person right on staff to call immediately and resolve that as quickly as possible and not have to wait for that service that Dr. Bolton was referring to. All right, so our third and final item that we bring to you is an addendum for the ESS substitute contract, and in an effort to remain competitive with the surrounding districts, and we're looking to advance that per diem building-based substitute rate from $110 to $125 to match our current short-term substitute rate for ESS. So if we were to have someone take an emergency leave for whatever, say a medical leave for a week or 2 weeks, we have that $125 rate built in for that short-term sub. So we are looking to now expand that to our building-based substitutes, again, in an effort to remain competitive and attract individuals to the position. Are there any questions on that item? No? Are we okay to move that item to the September 21st agenda?
Mrs. McHale, I just have one question.
Sure.
Is that equal or slightly above or slightly less than our surrounding districts? How does that match up to the surrounding districts?
It's average. It is average with our
Okay.
surrounding districts. We're probably a little bit on the high end, but that's the goal.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you all.
Mrs. Cohen, can I have a thumbs up to go ahead and continue? We're still struggling with your sign. Okay, so before we move into the last public comment space, just an announcement that the next curriculum committee meeting is scheduled for October 5th. And I had one public comment question that I failed to address, as well as one announcement that I have feverishly been texting with Lee Rush to see whether I was allowed to make it or not. I didn't want to steal his thunder. So Mr. Rush had asked in the public comment whether these procedures around live public comments would remain once we were able to gather back together. There is no intention that once we obviously are able to get back to meeting in one space and together. And so for us to be able to obviously have our public comment procedures that have been in place for a long time. So that is the expectation once we are able to get back into the same room together. So thank you, Mr. Rush. I apologize for overlooking that. Just as another step, as you think about community forums, obviously the discussions around diversity, equity, and inclusion are not just happening within the school district and not just happening within the schools. And so there is lots of work, lots of really good work going on countywide as well as statewide. And so we're excited to announce that you should hold the date of October 14th, a partnership between the Bucks County Peace Center as well as the Bucks County District Attorney's Office have been sponsoring a set of showings of the documentary Walking While Black. And so all of our area local police departments have agreed to participate in that. What that day will look like, and you'll get details once they're finalized, but on October 14th, there will be multiple times where you'll be able to zoom in and watch the documentary. And so there will be set times that you can, and then you'll be able to pick the one that works best for your schedule. And then that evening, there will be small group discussion and an opportunity for discussion across the community. And that is where representatives from the Peace Center and representatives from the local police departments will be part of those conversations with community members. So that'll be October 14th. That will be remote. It will primarily be through Zoom. So please be watching for that information, but I wanted to get that date on the calendar and thank Mr. Rush and all the people who are involved with the Alliance for Healthy Education in Penridge for their work in doing that. So thank you for that. As we move to the final public comment section, there have been additional public comments submitted. So I'd like to read the ones that have come in since 6 o'clock. From Gunther Nugent of Sellersville. I find the Penridge School District at large's approach to dealing with the spread of COVID-19 concerning. As detailed in the recent News Herald article, Penridge High School student tests positive for COVID-19. A student was recently awaiting the result of a COVID-19 test and chose to attend school not knowing that they were positive. Only after attending in-person class did this student receive the result of their test and notify the district. As we all know, a person who has had a positive exposure is expected to quarantine for 14 days. Even armed with the best information and a timely test, decisions were made that put other students, staff, and the community at large at risk. I agree that the risk to the development of young children is great, but I do not believe that high school students would suffer as many adverse effects during online learning, while the risk to the community and older family members remains great. Large studies from South Korea suggest that both those between the ages of 10 and 19 can spread the virus, at least as well as adults do, and that schools can increase virus levels with the community. And he references a New York Times article from July 18th of 2020. With this in mind, I believe that the most prudent course of action is to have all high school students outside of high-need special ed students receive remote instruction until community spread and the national numbers are brought under control. Additionally, I would like to remind the board of the fact that while COVID remains a topic of grave concern, structural racism, police brutality, and Penn Ridge's own history of problematic race-based incidents is of equal importance. I encourage the board to listen to community members of color with great heed, institute a curriculum dedicated to anti-racist education, and the release of a plan about how exactly the district intends to educate students about racism and uplift and promote the work of diverse scholars, historians, and activists. Thank you for your time. Kim Bedillion from Percy Borough. I oppose having the school district focus on concepts of diversity, inclusion, and equity as part of the curriculum. It is quite clear that those words, while seemingly benign, are being taught as part of a larger worldview. Take diversity, for instance. While many people might conclude that diversity means having an appreciation for differences, that is not what is being taught in academia. What academia means by diversity is a hyper-focus on race, gender, and sexual orientation. This plays out in school districts when staffing decisions are made. Instead of focusing on an individual's level of expertise and experience and making that paramount, the person's race, gender, and sexual orientation become more important. This results in quotas. When making decisions about curriculum, the race, gender, or sexual orientation of the author becomes the most important factor, ahead of the level of excellence of the author's work. A core value of the United States is e pluribus unum, or out of many, one. Our country is unique in that we are not unified under a certain religion, culture, or ethnicity, but rather we are united around principles such as liberty and freedom of speech. Our shared history and common language also unite us. The concept that diversity is more important than unity is a relatively new strategy. Current trends suggest that academia's focus on diversity above unity has damaged society. In the past, Penn Ridge School District united students by focusing on unifying concepts, such as school pride, civic responsibility, and kindness to all. We should continue in that vein. Christy Scallion in Sellersville Borough. First launch day and it was very confused already. My daughter was marked absent from a class, I'm guessing because she didn't attend the Zoom meeting. She didn't even see a Zoom link for that class. Shouldn't all classes be handling their launch day the same as then the next? All have Zoom meetings to allow the kids to know what the week will be for them. Searching around Canvas is time consuming and stressful. Everything should be located at the same place for all classes. Christine Adams from Percy Borough. In the past, I understand that elementary school students, including kindergarten, were sent in with snack time, drinks, and snack food provided by parents. This year, I was told there isn't any snack time for kindergarten, assuming the same for all students. This is a concern. Most adults would have a problem not having a mid-morning and or mid-afternoon snack. Why isn't there snack time? Christine Adams from Percy Borough. I apologize, I'm just checking, okay? It looks like Ms. Adams continued her comment, and since she has a minute, 3 minutes, I will just pretend I took a long breath. Thank you to the PSD board, all teachers and staff for all your hard work, thoughtful classroom decisions, and care. I am a parent of an in-person kindergarten student. Elementary school is new to us. We are happy with what we have seen so far during these COVID times. I have found it easy to reach Dr. Bolton, our principal, and our teacher. We are happy to be Penn Ridge proud. Thank you. Felicia Sharp from Percy. If diversity and inclusion is important, why was the training not mandatory? What was included in the training, and can that be made public, and also the slides that were provided? Jorge Araneta from Hilltown. Diversity of thought is a great way of signaling that you're okay with folks continuing to spew hate speech. There's no other perspective when it comes to hate speech. It's really a simple thing. The district could just say we have no tolerance for hate speech, intimidation, or racist rhetoric. You're educators of a multi-ethnic community. Let's at least pretend that there's some recognition of that. John Wilson from Bedminster Township. Will you be obtaining board approval for the change in the comment procedure to subsequent meeting? Shouldn't this change be the subject of debate and full vote of board members? Manette Roos from Silverdale. I understand that the pool is not being used for 10th grade swimming phys ed. What is the reason for that? The pool is being used for the water polo team, correct? David Bedillion from Percy Borough. I have a couple of follow-up questions for the DEI initiative. Has Penridge performed some kind of audit of the current status of students' skills and abilities with respect to the DEI areas in order to evaluate the effectiveness of the initiatives and trainings? If not, how can the school determine effectiveness of the trainings? What are the metrics for success? Who defines these metrics? With respect to getting community feedback, if the community members providing feedback aren't randomly selected from a population, then you can't reliably use the feedback as you are dealing with a biased sample. Given standard statistical practices and the fact that the mission of the DEI is to be anti-biased, how is Penridge dealing with the ensuring the community feedback received isn't biased? How is Penridge ensuring that the community members that are being added to the DEI team are not also falling prey to the same bias issues? Thank you for your time. And the final public comment tonight is from Jody McGuire of Bedminster. I would like to quickly ask what is meant by keeping an open mind on different perspectives regarding diversity mean. There should be no objection regarding inclusion of everyone. Maybe we can elaborate a bit on that just so we can keep the record straight and keep those lines of communication open. Again, we will be responding to those folks who asked questions or had comments during that second half of the time, either via email or phone calls over the rest of this week. So that's the end of the public comment period tonight. Mrs. Cullen, I'm looking at you to see whether from a sound standpoint, do you have anything else for the meeting? Okay, any other board members have any other topics? All right, are we good to adjourn then, Ms. Cullen? Okay, thank you, everyone. Good night.